Libyan National Army, or the LNA, spokesperson Ahmed al-Mismari announced that the military has cleansed regions in western Libya from militias loyal to the Government of National Accord, or the GNA, and affiliated Syrian mercenaries. He declared that the LNA, commanded by Khalifa Haftar, cleared the regions of Al-Assa, Rikdalen and Zeltin of GNA militias and Syrian mercenaries who fled from the advance of our brave forces. He thanked the residents for helping secure this victory and restoring their freedom from the clutches of terrorist and criminal groups. Afghani President Ashraf Ghani announced his 21-member team to negotiate peace with the Taliban after months of deliberation, only to have his political opponent rejected as not inclusive enough. Afghanistan's political turmoil has impeded each tentative step toward negotiations with the Taliban, which is the next critical step in a peace deal Washington signed with the insurgent group last month. The deal calls for the eventual withdrawal of all 13,000 US soldiers from Afghanistan in exchange for guarantees from the Taliban to fight terrorist groups, including the IS group. Silence prevailed over the sleepless Egyptian capital as authorities began imposing a curfew to contain the outbreak of the novel coronavirus. The city's busy streets were emptied of vendors and pedestrians who abided by the curfew hours from 7 p.m. till 6 a.m. Cairo is known as a city that never sleeps, with vehicles continuously on the streets until the early hours of the morning. Many cafes, restaurants and shops remain open throughout the night. As part of precautionary measures to confront the novel coronavirus, the Egyptian government held its weekly session through a video conference. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli stressed that holding a virtual cabinet session was a message to the people that the government was abiding by isolation measures to curb the spread of the virus. For her part, Dr. Hala Zayed, Minister of Health, announced that 456 cases were registered until Thursday evening, including 95 recoveries and 21 deaths. A parliamentary session held shed light on huge differences among Tunisia's politicians as the country fights the spread of the coronavirus. The session was attended by Prime Minister Elias El-Fakhfakh and Ministers of Social Affairs, Finance, Commerce and Traditional Industries, Interior and Health. The dispute between the legislative and executive authorities reached its peak after some parties, such as the Democratic Current, expressed support for the Prime Minister's initiative that enables him to issue emergency decrees without getting Parliament's approval. Lebanon will keep Beirut's Rafiq Hariri International Airport closed for both private and commercial passenger flights until April 12, extending a shutdown that began this month due to the coronavirus outbreak. Lebanon has recorded 391 cases of the coronavirus and 7 deaths. The latest casualty was a man in his 80s who was suffering from a chronic illness, reported the national news agency. The airport will remain open only for flights for the military, air ambulance service, cargo, diplomatic delegations, international organizations, and oil and gas drilling workers. The World Health Organization representative in East Mediterranean warned of the repercussions of a potential spread of the novel coronavirus in the region's war-torn countries. The emergence of the virus in much more vulnerable countries with fragile health systems in the region, including Syria and Libya, is of special concern. Libya's ongoing civil war, coupled with its poor health system, weakens the country's ability to respond to the new pandemic. The Saudi-led Arab coalition intercepted and destroyed 3 drones launched by Iran-backed Houthi militias towards Saudi Arabia, reported the Saudi press agency. Coalition spokesperson Colonel Turki Al-Malki said the aircraft were flown towards civilian targets in the cities of Abha and Khamis Mshiط. The coalition had welcomed a UN call for an immediate truce on Thursday as the kingdom combats the global coronavirus outbreak. Iraq and Lebanon extended government-imposed restrictions on movement for 2 more weeks, the latest measures announced to stem the spread of the COVID-19 disease. Iraq's health ministry reported a jump of coronavirus-related deaths by 7 in 24 hours, according to a statement Thursday, the highest since the government began recording cases. At least 36 people among 382 confirmed infected cases have died. The Iraqis have struggled to adhere to the days-long curfew in place since March 17th, prompting senior Iraqi officials and prominent religious figures to call for the public to stay at home and avoid congregation in crowds. The EU will launch its new naval mission in the Mediterranean to enforce an arms embargo on Libya in April after member states agreed its terms. Diplomatic sources said EU ambassadors approved the mission, dubbed Operation Irene after the Greek word for peace, after clearing last-minute objections. The decision followed warnings by EU Foreign Affairs Chief Josep Borrell that the bloc risked becoming irrelevant if it could not act, potentially leaving Libya's fate to Turkey and Russia. US troops with the coalition fighting the IS in Iraq officially handed over the Qayyarah air base to the Iraqi military as part of their redeployment plan in the country. The withdrawal came 1 week after the US-led coalition handed over the Al-Qaim military base on the Syrian border to the ISF. Iraqi Prime Minister-designate Adnan al-Zurfi has reassured the UN Security Council's permanent member state that his country would adopt a balanced foreign policy. The Egyptian state has dealt with the coronavirus crisis with full courage, transparency and credibility, considering it a national security issue. The state has been keen to take all preventive measures and decisions that preserve the value of people and combat the virus. The official urged citizens to implement all instructions of the state in this regard, as well as to have full confidence in the way it tackles the issue. US President Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping spoke by telephone, signaling a potential thaw in relations between the world's 2 most powerful countries after weeks of bitter exchanges over the coronavirus pandemic. In a tweet, the US president described his first interaction with his Chinese counterpart since the outbreak began 3 months ago as very good. However, other senior Trump administration officials were continuing to insist that the virus should be referred to as the Wuhan coronavirus. Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry met on March 25th with a number of assistants to foreign ministers to discuss developments related to combating the spread of the novel coronavirus COVID-19 and its implications on the conditions of Egyptian citizens abroad, as well as the extensive efforts of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in this regard. According to a statement, Shoukry was briefed on the efforts exerted by the Egyptian missions abroad in this regard, especially concerning coordination with the relevant authorities in the countries of accreditation in order to facilitate the return of Egyptians stranded abroad in cooperation with the relevant Egyptian authorities. The United States now has more coronavirus cases than any other country in the world, overtaking, according to the latest figures collected by Johns Hopkins University and released on Thursday. The US has more than 85,500 positive tests, overtaking China and Italy. However, Italy tops the list with 8,215 coronavirus-related deaths. China has reported 3,291 fatalities, and US deaths have neared 1,300.